want something else to get me through this semi-charm kind of life. I want something else. Not listening when you say goodbye.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. It has been quite a minute. We have a pretty dynamic show for you tonight. Tonight's theme is, to quote Third Eye Blind, I want something else. Some of you may remember that song. It applies to tonight's stories. Quite a bit to discuss. I want to start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat. I know people are already trolling me about the Celtics. Look, I just want to let you know. I forewarned my dad. Recently, we were in DC. We had a family trip. And I forewarned my dad that I think the Knicks might give us trouble. And my dad was like, you guys should be able to beat the Knicks. He said it just like that, too. And I was like, oh, no. And here we are. So I know people are already coming for me in the chat about the Celtics. Hey, we did win last year, so I can't be too upset. We did win last year. Shout out to Kathy for becoming a Sabby member. Give Kathy a big whoop whoop. What's up? Greetings, Tim says Sabby. TYT having MT Green on to kiss her ass. And Zateo having YouTuber Miss Rachel on talking about Gaza. Says a lot about Jinx Grift, SMH. I'm so over TYT and Karen Anna. Anyways, free Gaza and love ya, Sabby Sabs. Shout out to Andre. Thank you for the super chat. Hey, Sabby, I know you are a Star Wars fan. Have you been watching Andor? Not to give any spoilers, but lots of parallels to Gaza. I haven't started Andor yet, but it's on my list. So thank you for reminding me because I have a lot of things on a list that I'm supposed to watch, and Andor is one of them. So I have to check that out. You'll have to let me know how you like it so far. Shout out to Cloudness says, well, Sabby Sabs, happy Taco Tuesday and sorry about Tatum. But I told you that the Knicks were going to win this series in 6. Salute to you and Eric T. Red and everyone in the building. Yes, you did, Cloudness. See, everybody's coming after me now. Shout out to CBC Voters says, happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs and Eric T. Red. Greetings, Madia. Hey, Sabby, hope you are well, and thank you for dissecting the news for us the way that you do. And as always, free Palestine. Thank you and welcome. Shout out to Hannah says, Sabby. Shout out to Maticus says, where's the Discord? My Discord link is in the description box of all my videos. Shout out to Leroy. Good day, comrades. Tap the like for a real one. Much love to you all. Thank you, Leroy. Greetings, MBD says, today, Sabby, today. Greetings, Matthew says, break it down for us, Sabby. I'm going to try. Greetings, Jimmy Zim Zam says, hope you are all well. Shout out to Russell Koo says, hold ear, doobie doo. Greetings, James says, good evening all. Awesome. Thanks to Sabby and Eric. Shout out to David says, good evening, Sabby, and shout out to all comrades in the chat. We have such a great community here. Greetings, C. Shada says, hey, Sabby. Shout out to Thunder Buddy says, Jasmine laughing. Yeah, that's an interesting story. That is an interesting one. Greetings, Verena says, hello. Shout out to Darius says, does the heel toe? Greetings, ACAB. Good song pick, Sabby. Hey, you know, that song by Third Eye Blind is very energetic. It's uplifting. And then you find out what the song is about, what it's really about. And you're like, how can that song be so upbeat if it's about getting over addiction, right? Like, but that song is very like, do. Greetings, Chrome says, happy Taco Tuesday, Sabby. Shout out to William says, sup, Sabsters. Greetings, Honey. Says, thank you for having Max. He's a hero for humanity. Max isn't on tonight. Max is in Iran. But we're going to talk about what's happening with Max in Iran. But Max was on pretty recently. Shout out to Kira says, love. Hello. Greetings, Edward says, hi, Sabby. Hello, Edward, and greetings, Randy. Good evening, lovely Sabby and all my revolutionary comrades. Good evening and welcome. So many people in the chat. Shout out to Muhammad sends a hello. And we have so much to get into, fam. So much to discuss. So again, the theme tonight is I want something else. Let's go ahead and show that beautiful thumbnail so you can see what we're going to discuss. And then we will shout out patrons. Let's get into it. We do have a bonus story tonight as well. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing Max Blumenthal Iran visit. You'll notice in that square is Professor Morandi. That's the gentleman next to Max. Yeah, I saw these videos. I first saw them on X because he was posting some of the content there. And I just thought it was awesome that he got the opportunity to meet up with Professor Morandi. And Professor Morandi has been making the rounds. He's been on this show, Danny Haifong's show. He's been on the Gray Zone. He's been on a number of shows. The reason why I want to discuss the story is because I think people need to see what Iran looks like. And I think they need to hear another perspective, right? So we're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss OMG. Jasmine Crockett reveals Dems 2028 plan, and that does not include David Hogg. We're going to get into, this is a combination. It's one story, but it's a combo here. We're going to get into what the Democrat leadership and the DNC is doing to David Hogg right now, which I warned you about, and how that is connected to the plan that Jasmine Crockett has just revealed. It is just so, I told you guys, the Democratic Party is undemocratic. We're also going to discuss Trump drug prices. So this is a big one. Donald Trump has signed an executive order to lower the price of prescription drugs. Big story here, folks. How is this different from what Biden and Kamala did? We'll get into all of that. we're also going to discuss this story is, oh my God, it's making a lot of people mad. Elon gets refugee wish. Oh, yes. We're going to discuss the South African refugees who just made way to the United States. And we're going to talk a little bit here about hypocrisy, a little bit hypocrisy. And you're going to see who these people actually are, because people are saying that they're hardworking people and they're bringing in good. You're going to see it. You're going to hear who they really are. And you're also going to hear from the president of South Africa, who refutes this whole refugee status claim. We're also going to do a deep dive tonight. So for those who are new, once a week, I try to do a deep dive on the show into a subject that I think takes a little bit of time. And tonight we are going to discuss Black women marriage decline. This is back in the news again because of a viral video. So I got some things to say. I have some things to say. And last but not least, we have a breaking news story. Donald Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia and the major announcement that he made there. So can't wait to get into all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Hey. Shout out to all the patrons in the house. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters, because they do their damn thing. There are also Sabbies. You guys ever heard of them? You ever heard of the Sabbies? They're around too. Quite a meaty bunch. And we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. So if you're new, that's who all those people are. I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Kimberly Summer as we head into the summertime. Summertime, gonna walk down the beach, gonna go to the street. Da, 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 da. Summertime, it's all loving in the summertime. Thank you guys so much. Oh God, I can't get that song stuck in my head. That song is from a show called The Regular Show. My sister introduced me to that. It's a cartoon, and there was one at the episode I saw, they were singing that song, and that song got stuck in my head. And every time we go into the summer, I think about that song. Summertime, gonna walk down the street, gonna go to the beach. Summertime, it's all loving. Anyway, we have quite a bit to get into tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the theme is I want something else. And I think you'll see how this will be applied. Let's go ahead and get into the breaking news story, the big one of today. So Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia. Now, before he even got there, we got to talk about this whole controversy that Qatar offered a private jet, a luxury jet, to replace the Air Force One. So this has a lot of people talking, including Chuck Schumer, who is definitely against this. Let's go ahead and talk about this first. Check this out. While pushing America first, Trump sets to accept Qatar's luxury jet as Air Force One. So this is a gift that is coming from Qatar. We make this a little bit bigger for the people in the back. When it comes to the president's personal travel, he's ready to ditch the old 747 known as Air Force One in favor of a luxury jet that the royal family of Qatar, a tiny yet rich Arab country nearly 7,000 miles away, wants to gift to the U.S. So a lot of people are upset about this. Now, to me, I don't think this should be acceptable. I see this as this can be seen as a bribe, like in my opinion, like it's a luxury jet, right? And it's supposed to replace Air Force One. And I do think people do need to remember the ruling that the Supreme Court made. Don't forget, the Supreme Court said that it is okay for politicians to accept gifts. Now, this gift is coming from a foreign country. So I don't think Donald Trump should accept this. Like I said, it's not like I'm gifting you a shot glass or something, like a souvenir from my country. We're gifting you a luxury jet. There could be also some intelligence issues here. You don't know what's on that plane. You don't know if it could have been bugged or anything. Like, we really don't know. We don't know. But I see it as a bribe, like a gift that big. We gave you this jet. Now you're going to do for us. On the other hand, people are pointing out that the U.S. does have bases in Qatar. So it's just, I don't know, but this is a big one. A lot of people are not happy about this. I feel like we're living in an episode of The Twilight Zone. This is Senator Ron Johnson says that's a pretty strange offer. Laura Loomer, a Trump ally, posted on social media that while she would take a bullet for the president, accepting a plane from Qatar would be such a stain on the Trump administration. I'm so disappointed. Okay. It's like, oh my God, you want to take a bullet? Okay. Taking sacks of goodies from people who support Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, Al Jazeera, all the rest. That's not America first. That's coming from Ben Shapiro on his popular podcast. He adds, if you want President Trump to succeed, this kind of sleazy stuff needs to stop. So I bet you Ben Shapiro, though, would have been fined if the jet came from Israel. You know, like, I think if the criticism is you should not take lavish gifts from other countries, I understand that. But if the criticism is you took this gift and it's coming from Qatar, so that's why I have a problem with it. I don't know. Like, you're not being consistent, not being consistent at all. So that's how things begin. And I want to get into some of the things that Donald Trump said at this event here in front of the Prince of Saudi Arabia. There was a lot of talk about peace. There was a lot of talk about moving forward and making the Middle East a better, safer place. I think you all know how I feel about all that. People have the right to manage and run their own countries. But I want to start with this clip here first. And the Prince of Saudi Arabia, by the way, was eating this up. He really liked this. Listen to this.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves.
Okay, so the interesting part here, and apologize for that, the volume on that video is just very, very low, but it's interesting because he's bringing up interventionalists, et cetera, but he has some of these same like neocons as a part of his cabinet, right? Like, so there's Marco Rubio, there's Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard has moved in that direction, and it's crazy. Like, she's totally changed her position on how she used to be with these wars and staying out of the wars in the Middle East. So what I noticed about this discussion was that Donald Trump was talking a lot about peace, and I saw the entire speech here, but it's like at the same time, you're still giving weapons to Israel, right? Like, he still gave weapons to Israel. No food has entered Gaza in over 60 plus days. People are starving. I saw the pictures. I can't show them on here, but they're really like, they're horrible. If you look on social media and you just search like starvation in Gaza, you can see these photos for yourself. I saw a child's body torn to pieces and people picking up the pieces of the body on the ground. Like, it's absolutely brutal. So if you say you want peace and you want to move towards peace, then you cannot give these weapons to Israel. You just cannot. And that's what's been happening. In fact, Donald Trump has lifted some of the restrictions on those weapons that Biden put in place. Now, Biden was still given the weapons, so don't give him a pass either. But he lifted some of those restrictions on the types of weapons that Biden had in place so that Israel can cause even more damage in Gaza. So let him finish here and we'll go to the next one.
Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you haven't seen it, I uploaded a video yesterday and one on Monday to prepare people for this upcoming visit. The video I uploaded yesterday is doing really well. But that video basically talked about how Saudi Arabia wants to move in a different direction. There was the editor of Arab News from Saudi Arabia who was interviewed by the BBC, and he said, I don't care what Netanyahu wants. This has gone too far. This is ridiculous. We need to move in a different direction. Now, whether or not Saudi leadership feels that way, I don't know. And that's why I said we'll have to wait and see what happens during this visit that Donald Trump has. But at this point, I think it's getting very hard for even Saudi Arabia to defend Israel at this point. And as long as I know, Saudi Arabia has backed Israel. Another part that I want to show you from this visit, this part here, where he talks about far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders. So listen to this.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, you know, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength. You have to have the strength, otherwise bad things could happen. But
pause. Okay, so does everybody see the problem here? He's talking about peace and moving towards peace, but then he also talks about they just spent like $1 trillion to give the US military more weapons. So if you're moving towards peace, why did you spend $1 trillion to give the US military more weapons that you don't plan to use because you want peace? Is everybody following me here? Like, think about that for a second. I would have liked our government to give $1 trillion towards, I don't know, housing, healthcare, things like that, things people need. Why is the US government spending $1 trillion on weapons that they don't plan to use because they want to move towards peace? It's double talk. Like, either you're moving towards peace or you're not. There's no this back and forth thing.
hopefully we'll never have to use any of those weapons. Seems to be an awfully big waste of money if you're never going to use them, but hopefully we'll never have to use them because the destructive power of some of those weapons are like nobody's seen before. I believe it is God's job to sit in judgment, my job to defend America and to promote the fundamental interest of stability, prosperity, and peace. That's what I really want to do.
Yeah. So again, like I told you, there was a lot of discussion about peace and moving towards that. What I said in the video the other day was that Saudi Arabia is the country that could really move things in a different direction. As long as I can remember, Saudi Arabia has always kind of supported Israel. But I think the slight pushback from Jordan, the slight pushback from Egypt, and it's been mild compared to what I would have said. And then you have, of course, the fierce resistance from Iran and Hezbollah and Lebanon. The reality is Saudi Arabia is the one country, particularly in the Middle East, that the U.S. country really does need. right? Like, we do have this agreement with Saudi Arabia. They do see Saudi Arabia as an ally because we get resources from Saudi Arabia because of the oil, right? So if Saudi Arabia comes forward and they say, Israel, Netanyahu, that's it. If they follow what the editor of the Arab News said to the BBC and say, that's it, we can't have this anymore, this is a problem, that would make a big difference. Because again, the US needs Saudi Arabia. And I think that's just it. They have been quiet for too long. While we've watched for over a year, all these kids just like dying and people being blown up and starving, the images that we've seen that I will never be able to unsee. Saudi Arabia has been pretty quiet. So it would take them, I think, standing up to say something. It would take them to make that type of change. Now, that being said, there was a big announcement at this event. And it wasn't the announcement that Jerusalem Post predicted, which I covered this as well. Jerusalem Post, they predicted that Donald Trump was going to announce a two-state solution in the Middle East. Then they had to retract the headline and they had to change it because that was never confirmed. Like, it was bad. And I saw that trending on social media and I said, oh boy, let me go ahead and make a video about this one because that was never confirmed. And I didn't believe that that was the announcement that he was going to make. But he did make an announcement. And this is actually good. Now, there's a little bit of hypocrisy because he was a part of the slaughter, but this needed to happen. Big announcement here, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to this.
Has already taken the first steps toward restoring normal relations between the United States and Syria for the first time in more than a decade. And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week. And very importantly, after discussing the situation in Syria with the Crown Prince, your Crown Prince, and also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East, I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
Holy crap. I was not expecting that. That is a big, big deal. And if you're new, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. I was not a Kamala Harris supporter. I'm a registered independent. I voted for Jill Stein, but I cannot deny that this is significant because here's the thing. Notice that he said the Prince of Saudi Arabia after talking to him and after talking to Erdogan in Turkey. But it is Saudi Arabia that I said before that can move the chess piece. Obviously, Saudi Arabia speaking out, in my opinion, I think pushed this, to be honest with you. Lifting the sanctions in Syria is especially important. People have to understand that Syria has been devastated as a country. It is pretty much demolished based on the pictures and videos that I have seen. Now, Donald Trump was a part of that. Don't forget, he bombed Syria too. That being said, Syria has not been able to rebuild because of the sanctions that have been on them. So lifting the sanctions in Syria, yes, this needs to happen. Now I'm going to explain to you a little bit more why, the other reason why this is happening, but this needs to be done. No sanctions. They gotta go. Now, this is in conjunction with the Prince of Saudi Arabia and Erdogan in Turkey. Now, I want to tell you something else. Benjamin Netanyahu is not happy about this meeting. Benjamin Netanyahu is not happy that Donald Trump, number one, bypassed him and had direct talks with Hamas and released the hostage, the last American hostage in Gaza. Wasn't happy about that. He definitely is not happy about this conversation, because Donald Trump is negotiating and making deals with other Arab countries, and Israel does not have a seat at the table. Because truth be told, Israel really doesn't want any of them there. They really don't. This is not just about Palestinians. If they had it their way, Jordan would be theirs. Saudi Arabia would be theirs. Egypt would be theirs if they had it their way. So lifting the sanctions in Syria, yes, this is good. This is good. Let's continue. Okay, so that was the big announcement. Again, I didn't believe he was going to make an announcement about two-state solution, despite what the Jerusalem Post said. Now, let's get into why, the other why, because it's not just Saudi Arabia, right? So Ronnie Akalik pointed something out, and this is really good. I'm happy to see the sanctions on Syria lifted so the country can finally breathe after years of suffocation in service of regime change. But let's not ignore the hypocrisy. Many of those cheering today's sanctions relief were once the loudest voices demanding Syria be strangled into submission. They starved millions, not because of human rights abuses, but because Syria's last dictator refused many of their demands. The new Syrian dictator is no humanitarian. He is a former Al-Qaeda and ISIS commander whose forces have been committing sectarian atrocities for months with total impunity. These same voices now justify today's massacres while whitewashing their past crimes. They terrorize civilians with economic warfare and then crown themselves saviors once the damage was done. Watch closely. Their compass is pointed towards power and rapacious imperialism, not justice. So I just want to remind everybody that when Assad was overthrown, there were few of us in left independent media that warned you that this is not something you should cheer on because Israel was going to move right in. And that's exactly what happened. Then they have this leader, which we also warned you about, which we said, yo, now it's okay to applaud ISIS. Now the U.S. government is okay with applauding ISIS. They move right in and you see regime change happening in real time. So all of those things did happen. And there were some trying to warn. There were a number of people that said, you guys should be cheering this on. And I'm like, why would you cheer on regime change? Right? Now, let me go into a little bit more detail because I want to show you something else. We need to get into why this is actually happening as well, not just because of Saudi Arabia, but they're a part of it. Sorry, I had to sign into this again. That's Substack for you. Listen to this. Syria's new president has an offer for Trump. So this is coming from Ryan Grimm and Murtaza. So let me just jump down here. So remember this guy? Remember him? All right. So that is Syrian interim president Ahmad al-Shara. He was attending the Antalya Diplomacy Forum on April 11th, 2025. That was in Turkey. So let me just jump forward to this part here. The potential deal, Mustafa said, is being made public because some of Trump's pro-Israel advisors, including ousted National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, had deliberately blocked Trump from learning about the concession Syria is willing to make. And it goes into the destruction of Syria, which we've covered before. As part of the potential deal, Syria would continue fighting groups like the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Mustafa said there would be an increased intelligence sharing opportunities with the U.S., Syrian rapprochement. The deal could also include limiting the ability of Palestinian militant groups. So you see this? Said to be aligned with Iran to operate in Syria. Mustafa noted that the Syrian government has recently jailed officials from Palestinian Islamic Jihad in what he described as a sign of the new government's willingness to take on Iran and its allies. So this whole push here, and I'll just jump forward a little bit here. You have to understand that this is not the US government just being nice. This is not the US government just saying, you know what? We did Syria wrong. Let's go ahead and lift the sanctions. That's not the full reason behind it. The sanctions should be lifted, but still, Syria remains racked by internal chaos, including sectarian violence, criminality, widespread poverty, and a lack of basic services. Militias linked to the government carried out a large-scale massacre of Alawite civilians following an aborted coup in coastal Syria earlier this year. I want to jump forward to this part. It remains to be seen whether Shara can pull off the delicate balancing act of placating the U.S. enough to lift sanctions and permit the rebuilding of Syria. But his attempt to reach out to Trump by offering a lucrative business opportunity for American companies may afford him a chance. So they are agreeing to allow American companies to come into Syria. So you need to know the full part of this and not just Donald Trump is lifting sanctions on Syria. You also need to know the other piece of it, which is that along with this agreement, they are going to allow American companies to come into Syria and also try to put some type of a stop on Palestinian resistance groups. So it's not just the US government is trying to be nice and undo a wrong. That's the part of the speech that's absent. That part needs to be heard. But I want something else, right? I want something else. Call me picky, call me choosy. I want a free Palestine. I want the Palestinian people to be free. I want that. I want the bombs to stop in Gaza. I want the occupation to stop. I want the oppression to stop. I want Israel out of the West Bank. Honestly, the way that you stop a lot of the chaos that's happening in the Middle East is you remove Israel. You remove Israel. That's where it's really coming from. Without Israel, with the occupation and oppression, you don't get a Hamas, you don't get a Hezbollah, you don't get any of these things happening. You have them because they are trying to resist the oppression and the occupation that is on them. So if people really want peace in the Middle East, you had peace. You had peace before the settlers came. That's how I see it. Yes, the sanctions they should be lifted in Syria. The sanctions that got to go. But I do want you to understand a little bit more about that, why that is happening. But that's what I want. As a state, Eric said I should be careful about saying remove Israel. Remove it as a state. As I said before, there should be I don't believe in religious states. I've said this before. I've said this to Professor Morandi as well. I don't believe in that. There should be one secular state where Palestinians and Israelis have equal protection under the law. That's what I believe. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you, Andrew. Oh, we saw this one. Sorry. Thank you, Blueser. Evening, Sabby. Do you have the link for Rome, Chicago diaper give? Thanks for your work. It is on Twitter. Follow Rome on X. Maybe Eric can pull it up a little bit later in the show. But Rome usually posts all of those things on X. So if you follow them there, that's where you'll see it. Thank you so much. But we could probably pull it up later. Thank you, Daniel. I'm a scientist. I wasted 7 years pleading with TYT, warning them about the arrival of this moment in time. I was mocked and blocked. Global W equals war. I'm sorry you were mocked and blocked. I'm sorry. Wow. Thank you, Wandy. TYT block. Is everybody getting blocked today? What is happening? Wandy said TYT blocked me because I said Jasmine was an APAC princess. The APAC princess thing is kind of funny, but you got blocked for that. Interesting. Wow, what is going on? Jeanette says he can accept a jet, but non-violent protesters, activists, and journalists are being jailed and deported. Exactly. If you guys get a chance, make sure you cover or watch the video I uploaded about Hassan Piker being detained. Thank you, Mark, on Rumble. General strike, dual power. I agree. Thank you for posting that link, Eric. Yeah. Thank you. Man, I guess everybody getting blocked. Everybody around here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new, go ahead and smash that like button, or any of you smash the like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we're moving on to the next story. Again, the theme is I want something else. And that cannot be further from the truth with this next story. Now, David Hogg, who is the vice president of the DNC, came forward and said that he wanted to basically change the Democratic Party. He said some of these incumbents, they got to go. I think a lot of people outside of that DC elite bubble can agree with that. That some of those people got to go, right? But the Democratic Party, the leadership, and the DNC don't agree with that. And they do not like what David has been trying to do. Now, what does this have to do in connection with Jasmine Crockett's reveal about what the Democratic Party is planning for 2028? So let's start with this appearance of David Hogg and Donna Brazile, of all people. We'll get to her in just a second, on Bill Maher's show. Now, I want you to hear what he said about how things need to change in the Democratic Party. And Donna Brazile, Miss Cheater herself, of all people, chimes in. Listen to this.
There's one thing I wanted to talk about too, which is a little bit of what you just talked about, which is there have been a few members that have come out that have said, well, you know, if I retire, my life is effectively over. And what I would say is get over yourself. This isn't about you. Right. This is about our country, and it's about your constituents. Nobody is I don't care if you've been there for decades or just one term. That seat is not yours. It is your constituents. That is who you're there to serve. And if they choose to serve somebody else, so be it. That's all we're trying to do with Leaders We Deserve is give people the option to vote for somebody that isn't necessarily the same person. That's
and Bill, let me just
pause back here and go back to David, okay? Because David came in, you know, he came in kind of hot. David came in kind of hot. And David said, I don't care. Get over yourself. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But David did what I think squad members and Bernie Sanders weren't willing to do. They weren't willing to go that far. They weren't willing to go that far and say, get over yourself, right? So that's important because now the DNC is trying to remove David Hogg as vice chair. So you have two options. David had two options coming into this. One option was to get in line and keep his position. Don't rock that boat. The other option was to try to change or reform the Democratic Party and lose that position. And David chose the latter. Now, he probably didn't realize that they would try to get rid of him, but we did. We did. I've been through this before. We went through this. I went through this with Bernie 2016, Bernie 2020. We have actively seen the DNC cheat to push out the people that they don't want, whether they got the votes or not. We watched them take votes from Bernie Sanders in 2016 and give them to Hillary Clinton. We watched them collude in 2020 and get all the other candidates to drop out at a certain time. Barack Obama was part of this as well. everyone's beloved Barack Obama. He was a part of this as well to get people to drop out to help Joe Biden win. Like, the Democratic Party is not democratic. They're undemocratic. And poor David, very young, energetic, wanting to make a change, walked right into an alligator pit with no shoes. And they are basically eating him up. What makes it crazier is you have Donna Brazile, Miss Cheater-in-Chief herself, who was a part of keeping the people there that the establishment wanted instead of what the voters wanted. Listen to what she says. Like, this just baffled me that her, of all people, this woman shouldn't be doing any interviews, number one. But listen.
And Bill, let me applaud one thing. I'm glad that David is at the table. You know, I've been at the table a long time, and I love being at the table because it took me a hell of a long time to get in and to get a seat. And once I got a seat and got my folding chair, I was ready. I was set.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes a day when you can't stir every pot, and you're gonna have to get the out. And I'm glad that David is throwing a rock inside the party. All I would like to advise David is my 25-year-old March on Washington King holiday, free Nelson Mandela self. Call me what the hell you please, but I know what I did when I was his age. I wanted to have a role in American politics. I want to care about my country. I want to love my country, and I want to give back what my country gave to me. And if David takes that spirit on the DNC, I'll vote for his ass again.
So this woman, Donna Brazile, no one cares about the march that you did on Washington. No one cares. None of that matters. None of that matters when you sat there and you cheated to help Hillary Clinton, who ended up losing anyway. So all those things that you did, people kill me with this. They want to come forward with what they did a long time ago. Marched on Washington, my young activist self. None of that matters because what we remember you for is being a cheater. That's what we remember. When the time came for you to choose what the people wanted and what the establishment wanted, you weren't trying to be activists in that. You went with what the establishment wanted. You went against the will of the voters. You went against the will of the people. So that march you did on Washington, I don't really give a fuck about, okay? I don't care about that now. None of that matters. People have to understand that Donna Brazile in particular, and I'll show you because, you know, we gonna go there. This is what she did for Hillary Clinton. CNN parts ways with Donna Brazile, a Hillary Clinton supporter. See, people remember this. People forget because I don't. CNN has severed ties with Democratic strategist Donna Brazile after hacked emails from WikiLeaks showed that she shared questions for CNN-sponsored candidate events in advance with friends on Hillary Clinton's campaign. So, Miss Donna, Miss March on Washington, okay? When push came to shove, you went against the will of the people and you leaked questions to Hillary Clinton's team to help her in advance. Okay? You are a cheater. You are a cheater. And she was on the DNC. So what you see happening right now, what they're doing to David Hogg, this isn't new. The DNC been corrupt. We're going to go through it, honey. We're going to go through all of it so you can see the corruption in real time. And she has the nerve to be on Bill Maher's show telling David, you know what? I appreciate your energy and da-da-da-da. Girl, bye. Bye. Now, to show you some of this corruption, they're already doing it. What we tell you. DNC panel recommends redo of vote that elevated David Hogg to vice chair after procedural concerns. So now they're going to say, oh my God, we're going to have to do a redo vote because maybe you didn't follow proper procedure. That's their way of getting around it, right? One fair and square. Let's see how we can change that. And that's supposed to be Democratic. Marianne Williamson, you have some things to answer for because you were on Bad Faith Podcast trying to convince everybody that the guy that you voted for, Mr. Ken, was going to do the right thing by the people. And now this Mr. Ken is trying to overturn this. They don't want change. The party cannot be changed. So listen to this. DNC subcommittee on Monday recommended that the organization invalidate one of its February vice chair votes over claims that it unfairly disadvantaged female candidates. Like, I'm not even making this up, folks. I'm not making this up. So when everything fails, let's go with, it was unfair to women. That's how we'll get them out of there. The Democratic Party didn't learn anything from the loss in 2024. They're really trying to do this. I'm not exaggerating. Goes on to say the move, which won't be official unless the entire DNC votes to approve it, could open up new races for positions held by David Hogg, Florida activist, and Malcolm Kenyatta, a Pennsylvania state legislature. Is it this? The challenge by Oklahoma Democratic Committee woman Kaylin Free, who unsuccessfully ran against Hogg and Kenyatta in February race for vice chair, is not related to the ongoing tension between Hogg and the National Party over his push to support primary challenges against incumbent Democrats. Yeah, right. Instead, it was based off of Free's claim that the handling of the vice chair vote gave the two men an unfair advantage amid the National Party's requirements that its executive committee achieve gender balance. You cannot make this up. So now they're going to try to say that he can't have that seat or shouldn't have that seat because there's no gender balance, because you have Ken, who's the DNC chair, and so the vice chair should be a woman. People voted for David. So there's no true democracy in this country. The Democratic Party is undemocratic. And this is why I continue to say, and I warn people about this, and I'm tired of saying I told you so, damn it, but I warn people about this. There is no reforming the Democratic Party. I used to believe it was possible. I believed it in Bernie 2016. Hell, I even believed it in Bernie 2020. But after all that, I realized money talks, billionaires talk, Wall Street talks, the MIC talks. All of those things matter more than what the voter actually wants when it comes to the Democratic Party and when it comes to the DNC, because the DNC is corporate. So they want David out. Now, this is important when we get to Jasmine Crockett, because Jasmine Crockett let the cat out the bag. Jasmine Crockett is letting everybody know what the Democrat leadership has already planned for 2028. And I want you to think about what she says here. I want you to think about what AOC and Bernie are doing right now, which I told you is just an effort to sheep herd you back into the Democratic Party. They're not trying to start a third party, which Bernie has already said on record. They're not trying to move you outside of the two-party system. It's to get the voters back that did not turn out in 2024. 6 million people that voted for Biden in 2020 didn't show up to vote for Kamala in 2024. So they send out people like Bernie and AOC to get the progressives and, the young people back in line, to get them to come back into the fold, those people that helped Biden, because they lost the youth vote. They also lost the African-American vote, the black vote. When you look at it, folks, Kamala received less black votes than Hillary, Biden, and of course, Obama, right? So after all that, listen to what Jasmine Crockett says the plan is.
It is this fear that the people within the party, within the primary system, will have about voting for a woman, because every time we voted for a woman, we've lost so far. And I think that that's a natural fear, because we just want to win. So there's a lot of people that are like, you know what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it. We're getting those callers.
For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell, and I can tell you, it's not a black person nor woman. Okay. So like it is, they have.
Let's go back. Everybody hear this? Listen to this.
The candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell, and I can tell you, it's not a black person nor woman. Okay.
It's not a black person and it's not a woman. That means if you wanted to know if AOC was going to be that nominee, which I told you I don't think the Democratic Party would let her be the nominee, that is a no. Because she said it's not a woman. And she also said it's not a black person. So that pushes out Wes Moore, that pushes out Cory Booker, all these people that have been named. Guys, what Jasmine Crockett is telling you is that the donors have already told the Democratic Party who they want the nominee to be for 2028. The donors have already chosen the person. So what you see AOC and Bernie doing right now, that's just to get you energized and revved up for 2028 to usher you right back into the Democratic Party to vote for this said person who is going to be the nominee that Jasmine is warning everybody about. So think about that when you think about the DNC wanting to remove David Hogg. They don't want change. They're not going to change. The Democratic Party cannot be reformed. You are wasting your time and your money donating money to AOC and Bernie and all of them. I went through all this. I did all this. I did it. And I'm telling you, you're wasting your money and you're wasting your time. They've already selected the nominee. It is 2025. Just like Hillary was selected years prior to 2016. You think we picked the nominee? The donors picked the nominee. If we were picking the nominee, Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee in 2026, not Hillary Clinton. Let me let her finish.
So like it is, they have, quote unquote, they have chosen. And when I say they, it's the same donors that most likely had their opinions about Joe Biden and move. So like that would be the they that I would talk about. Here's what I want people to understand is I do absolutely agree with Malcolm when he talks about not ceding your power. At the end of the day, don't give up your power. People fail to recognize how unique Trump is. They continue to say, well, we lost. Well, they both lost to Trump. Trump, who is a misogynist. Trump, who is going to ramp up the misogynist in the first place, because that's what he does. He is disrespectful. Like right now, he still doesn't know how to deal with me, because if you punch me, I'm punching back. Okay. So like, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Now I know he think he running again. But that ain't happening. I don't care what all is going on in this country. And I don't care how many things we won't say we are absolutely going to do. I am telling y'all with all confidence, he is not running for a third term. That is not a thing. It is.
So this video has been making the rounds on social media because people are calling this out and people are saying like, oh my God, they've already chosen that person. I also noticed there was some people are saying Gavin Newsom. I noticed there was a town hall in Iowa today with Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg couldn't get the black vote when he ran in 2020. Black people not really feeling Pete like that. This is something the Democratic Party doesn't want to say. And watch this. If Pete Buttigieg becomes the nominee, and he loses, they're going to say, oh my God, people didn't vote for him because he's LGBTQ. Watch. Just like people didn't vote for Kamala because she's a woman of color, and da 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 da. And there's always going to be some of that. But that's not everybody. I mean, you mean to tell me they didn't realize Kamala wasn't doomed from the get-go? She couldn't get a delegate when she ran in 2020. And now they're trying to make Pete a thing. They're trying to make booty a thing. This guy, once he got to South Carolina, first of all, he didn't win Iowa. He jumped the gun and said that he did. When you look at the numbers, Bernie Sanders actually won Iowa in the Democrat primary in 2020. Then he gets to South Carolina and he's all the way at the bottom because Black people did not want him. Pete Buttigieg, and I don't give a damn how many Black kids you adopt, Pete Buttigieg does not fare well in the Black community. And some of that comes from his interactions with Black people in South Bend, Indiana, when he was mayor. Talk to the Black community in South Bend, Indiana, about how he ignored a Black kid who was found hanged from a tree. Talk to him about that. You can still find those videos online, by the way, of the Black community approaching him at the town hall and him just sitting there not wanting to say anything. Black people not feeling him like that. But they've already decided. And I'll show you just how corrupt this all is. People are wasting their time. They're wasting their freaking time. Do you know who this guy is? Are you familiar with Bruce Spiva? You know why Bruce Spiva is important? Bruce Spiva, this dude, he is the one that represented the DNC during the DNC fraud lawsuit. Now, apparently, now he is a part of the CLC, Advancing Democracy Through Law, right? Bruce Spiva is an attorney and a community leader who spent over 30-year career fighting for civil rights and civil liberties, voting rights, consumer protection, and antitrust enforcement. This is very hilarious, voting rights. Because you see, I interviewed the lawyers that represented the Bernie side for the DNC fraud lawsuit, and they said they would never go through this again. They weren't even asking, they were asking for the people to get their money back. This is after Bernie 2016. Yes, there was a DNC fraud lawsuit. Nico House was a part of this as well. And the argument was that the DNC cheated Bernie Sanders, which they did. But let me tell you what Bruce Spiva argued in court and what the judge said. Shout out to Kesheev. In 2016 primary, the DNC cheated Bernie Sanders. Many Sanders supporters sued the DNC, which argued the case should be thrown out because the party is a private entity and won. This is very important, ladies and gentlemen. The Democratic Party is a private entity. It is a corporation. Now, wait till you hear what the judge actually declared. This is wild. Peep this, fam. DNC attorney Bruce Spiva. Again, the DNC won this. There is no such thing as a Democrat. The DNC just encourages people to vote for the Democratic Party. Mark 1. Mark 2. No one has any right to an expectation of a fair election. Hold up. No one has any right to an expectation of a fair election. Everybody get that? Because it's a private entity. They don't owe you a fair election. Wait till you hear more. It gets crazier. If the DNC wishes to select a candidate in the primaries instead of a free election process, that is their right. That's exactly what they did. You see, they're doing it right now. 3, donating money to Bernie Sanders doesn't mean you thought that money was going to assist him to win the primary. You have no right to think that the DNC was obligated to follow their own charter and internal policies about elections. So they even ruled that the DNC can go against their own charter. That's how deep this goes. It goes on to say here, 4, discussion of and any disputes with the DNC do not belong in a transparent process in a court of law. That goes back to they can pick candidates in a smoke-filled room. The DNC is a private association, which should never be asked to engage in the discovery process or have to reveal any of its internal workings or strategies should they decide to select a candidate rather than allow a fair election of a candidate. The judge ruled in favor of the DNC. So this is why I say you're wasting your money. This is why I say donate your money to mutual aid organizations. Hell, donate your money to starting your own mutual aid organizations. I do a mutual aid workshop. I started one last month. I'll be doing the next one again in June. I'll announce it on the show and I'll send it through my newsletter. You can join that workshop. I'll show you how to start mutual aid where you live. Donate your money to your community. Donate your money to organizing your people in your community and getting things done on a local level. You are not going to change the Democratic Party. What I am telling you here, everybody else that is a part of that Bernie sphere in independent media knows this. This isn't new. And they're choosing to ignore it and still sit up there and tell you to try to fight within the Democratic Party. Meanwhile, they continue to get richer. And you're giving your money to these candidates that they know damn well will not be allowed to be the nominee. It is a waste of your money. It is a waste of your time. People will say that third parties are a waste of time too. You have your right to your opinion about that. I vote third party. But when people ask me what they should donate their money to, I say you should donate your money to mutual aid. Because the whole damn political system is corrupt. Now, in the words of Third Eye Blind, I want something else. I want multiple parties. I want a 4 and 5th and 6 parties like the UK has. I want multiple parties to be on the ballot in every state. I want that, plus more mutual aid organizations. I want people to participate more in local politics. I want people to pay attention to who their city councilors are because these are the people that control the budget. Ding, ding, ding. I want people to pay attention to those things. Now, a lot of people don't talk about it because it's not sexy. I want people to organize and get on the ground and run these ballot measures in your state. There are many of you that watch me that live in California. California is a ballot initiative state. Some of these progressive policies that people have been trying to get passed on the national level that have not been passed, $15 minimum wage, which is way out the water by now, should be so much higher, have passed in the states. That's really where the fight is going to be. And if you pay attention to what the Supreme Court has been doing, noticing a lot of things are being kicked back to the states. So let's organize and run these BIs. Build up more mutual aid networks. If you want to run for something, I say run for local. Run local. Run for city council. They control the budget. Do that type of thing. Get involved with your city council. Go to those city council meetings. They're free to the public so that you know where your money is going and what is up. But on the national level, the best chance that we have right now of building up a third party is the Green Party because they have the most ballot access. I know everybody don't agree with the Green Party policies, but if you're looking at who has the best chance right now, that would be for the left perspective, that would be the Green Party. The Green Party has the Bernie Sanders platform and then some. But it is not going to be done through the Democratic Party. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Shout out to Simon Nubblesea for becoming a Sabby member. Give Simon a big whoop whoop. Summon in the house. Summon in the house. Shout out to Clarissa. Sabby and crew, I enjoy this independent channel. Thank you. And welcome. Thank you, Marlon. APAC gonna sick the dogs on the hog. Yeah, and not even just them. Thank you, Roger. Her and Roland participated in that. Roland got fired too. That's right. But Comrade JB says, Sabs, we have been saying this for 4 years. People are still trying to reform an unreformable party. Right. It's a waste. You're wasting your money. It's a waste of money, man. Thank you, Anthony. The definition of insanity. Thank you, Christian, for the super sticker. Thank you, Marlon. A return to establishment candidate of the core by the core. Thank you, Joey, who's been a member for 22 months. If you can't afford the lawyer fees, then you're priced out of the market for asserting your rights. Yep. Thank you, Marlon. Don't try to change them. Leave them Dems and reps. And thank you, Anthony. Local government operating as state government, locales, more power to tax, another problem. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And let's get that comment on Rockfin. Thank you, Roger. Sabby saying, I'm getting tired of saying I told you so was like Trump saying you're going to the winning so much you're going to get tired of winning. You know full well you will never get tired of rubbing your vindications in people's face. Oh, Roger. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're making good time. If you haven't done so, like, sub, and share. And we're moving on to the next story. This one took me for a loop. So, if you have not noticed, South Africans have immigrated to the U.S. There's a group of white South Africans that have been classified as refugees that have been allowed to enter the U.S. Don't believe me? Check this out. And we're going to get into some of the hypocrisy here, ladies and gentlemen. Check this out. You see, now all of a sudden it seems to be okay. So everyone's going to say it's not a large group. Compare the numbers. I get that. I get the numbers. That's not what this is about. This is about if you complained about refugees coming to the country and you got a problem with people coming as refugees, you should have a problem with these white South Africans who just came here as refugees, which, as you will see, the president of South Africa is going to explain to you how they're not even refugees. This is a nod, a wink and a nod to Elon Musk. That's really what this is. Elon got what he wanted. Let's continue. I want to get to the part where the gentleman speaks here.
It is such an honor for us to receive you here today. This is the land of the free, and we know that all of you have faced... I'm Chris Landau. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States. This is my friend Troy Edgar.
Yeah, I'm the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. And again, welcome. So great to have you guys here.
I know you've gone through a long flight. I cannot believe there are babies and children who are actually so well behaved. This is much better than mine are. So bless you for that. And
did you all get the talking point? So well behaved. Okay. So where are they going to get the housing from, folks? Who's going to give them housing? Where's all this stuff? If you were complaining about your tax dollars going towards refugees coming in the country, who is paying for all of this stuff for them? Because I'm trying to hold people to their word. I'm trying to see if people are being consistent. Let's go on.
You know, I think it's so happy. It makes me so happy to see you with our flag in your hands, and that flag symbolizes liberty for so many of us. many of us, our families have had a journey not that different from the journey that you are embarking on today. My own father was born in Europe and had to leave his country when Hitler came in the 1930s, and made his way to South America first and then eventually to the United States. So he is an immigrant who actually, was able to benefit from the many blessings of this country. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to go and work for the government is because I wanted to give back to this country that really brought freedom to my family and allowed us to escape a very difficult situation in another country. So, I know that this is going to be, any adjustment in life, any change takes a while to get used to. But I want you all to know that you are really welcome here and that we respect what you have had to deal with these last few years. We respect the long tradition of your people and what you have accomplished over the years. And I am sure that you will be successful. It's, as you know, a lot of you, I think, are farmers, right? When you have quality seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom. They will.
Pause. Does everybody see what's happening here, right? So he's saying they're escaping a dangerous situation. As you're going to see, that's not the case. There is no genocide of white South Africans. That is a lie. Now, I bring this up to prove a point. The U.S. government won't allow Palestinians to come to the U.S. They won't allow them to come here as refugees. They won't allow, they're not alone, but it's certain ones that is like, okay, come on in. There was no danger, and you'll see that. There's no danger that they were really in. And wait till you find out who they really are. But you literally have kids starving in Gaza. You have kids being bombed in Gaza. You have people, don't forget about the West Bank, what Israel is doing to people there, but they're not allowed to come here. And they're in a legit dangerous situation, but they're allowed to come here. This was a nod to Elon Musk. This is what Elon Musk wanted. This was a wink and a nod for him. Do these people look like they were in danger? Do any of the people here look like they are malnourished or they have been going through starvation? Do they look this way to you? They don't look that way to me. Don't none of them look hungry. Don't none of them look like they have been bombed or their clothes look very clean. They seem to be fine to me. So what is this dangerous situation that they are supposed to be running from?
Bloom. And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom, and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children, and then we will bloom and we will benefit alongside you. So thank you very much for coming here.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're here. And now what we are noticing, because I want to bring this up as well, is that you're going to see that the president of South Africa is going to make it very clear to you, under the definition, they don't even qualify as refugees. So let's go ahead and bring in Cyril here. He's going to explain this to people, why they're not refugees.
As we speak, 49 white Afrikaner refugees are on their way to the United States. They will be received by the government of President Trump. What is your reaction to this?
Well, we've raised our own concern because those people who are being enticed to go to the United States do not fit the definition of a refugee. A refugee is someone who has to leave their country out of fear of political persecution, religious persecution, or economic persecution. And
that's what the United States says they're undergoing in South Africa. That's why they've opened the door for them.
Yes, and they don't fit that bill. They don't fit that description. And I had a conversation with President Trump on the phone, and he said, what's happening down there? And I said, President, what you've been told by those people who are opposed to transformation back home in South Africa is not true. And I added to him, I said, we were well taught by Nelson Mandela and other iconic leaders like Oliver Tambo on how to continue to build a united nation out of the diverse groupings that we have in South Africa. We're the only country on the continent where the colonizers came to stay, and we have never driven them out of our country. So they are staying, and they're making great progress. It's a fringe grouping that does not have a lot of support, that is anti-transformation and anti-change, that would actually prefer to see South Africa going back to apartheid type of policies. And I said to him, I would never do that. I learned at the feet of Nelson Mandela, and we intend to proceed with the implementation of our constitutional architecture. And I thought in my conversation with him early in the morning at 4 o'clock South African time, he understood that. And I said, I'd like to come and meet him so that we can discuss this matter further. So those people who have fled are not being persecuted. They are not being, hounded. They are not being treated badly. And they are leaving ostensibly because they don't want to embrace the changes that are taking place in our country in accordance with our constitution.
So that part is important for people to hear. You have to remember those people, again, they were the colonizers, okay? We're forgetting what South Africa was. One of the most unequal countries in the world. One of them, not the only one. Okay? So Europeans came to South Africa, stole land from the Black South Africans, and still have a problem with the fact that the Black South Africans even have any bit of it, any bit of the land, when it wasn't theirs to begin with. So think about this for a second. So you need to understand that the people who came here, these people were not oppressed. Let me let him finish here and we'll go on to some of the other videos to show you.
So we think that the American government has got the wrong end of the stick here, but we'll continue talking to them.
So a face-to-face meeting is coming up. Is Elon Musk invited when you have that face-to-face meeting?
Well, I don't know. They will determine whether Elon Musk is part of it or not. I will go with my own South African delegation.
Your Excellency, thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Yeah, so that's important for people to hear. It's very obvious, the virtue signaling. It's very obvious what's happening here. Now, I want you to hear this video as well. South Africa warns Trump about refugees. Importing white races is on brand for this administration. Listen to what this guy says, okay? People need to know who just came here. Listen to this.
So South Africa's own government is even coming out today and telling Trump, if you want to take on these refugees, that's on you. But just so you know, none of them have been properly vetted. A lot of them have been involved in protests that are pro-apartheid. And on top of that, these guys are actually claiming that they're being persecuted for being white. I don't know if you know a whole lot about South Africa, where Elon Musk is from, but the apartheid just ended not very long ago. If you don't know what that is, it was mass segregation. South Africa's government also came out and added that it's really hard to be a refugee of persecution when you're amongst the most highest earners and highly educated in the entire region. But in my personal opinion, this kind of gives me remnants of Operation Paperclip, what the U.S. government did after World War II. They got a little over 1,500 German scientists and high-ranking officials from the military, Hitler's military, to come over to the United States so they could learn from them. Now, I'm no mathematician, but 2 + 2 = 4. What Trump's been doing here in the United States as far as deporting individuals, they've all been brown people. And now he's more than willing to bring thousands of white people claiming they've been persecuted by brown people without even fully vetting them. The answer to this simple mathematical equation is Trump wants more white people in the United States. If it ain't white, it ain't right. And that's literally Trump's mindset. You can't prove me otherwise.
Now, one of the things I will add as well, again, like I said, these are not the people. These people are not persecuted. Okay, listen to this woman. A white South African woman speaks on the group of South African refugees that just entered the US. She said, "This is for the Americans."
This is for the Americans. If you're not an American, feel free to watch, but please try and get it to the Americans. My name is Bianca van Wyk, born in South Africa, live in South Africa. Today you will be welcoming the so-called white Afrikaans refugees. They are there based on an offer made to them, which I must say was informed by disinformation about South Africa. Now, I've seen a lot of takes on who Americans think they are receiving. Okay, you are not getting successful, professional, white, middle-class South Africans that are fleeing South Africa. The people you are getting are the people that believe that there is discrimination against them based on their race. Keep in mind, we live in the most unequal country in the world. We have, for instance, 70% of agricultural land and agricultural holdings are owned by white South Africans. 62 to 68% of top leadership positions in corporate are filled by white males.
That's the part that people really need to hear. Like I said, they were colonizers. They came there and they colonized South Africa. They are in the majority of the leadership positions. They own most of the land, and they are saying that they're the ones that are being victimized and they're the ones that are oppressed. Like, this makes no sense whatsoever. People really have to pay attention to what is going on here. I will not let my viewers be misled by this at all. Let me let her continue.
There's a huge salary disparity between white South Africans and the rest of the population. And there are a number of other indicators which shows you that this story of discrimination based on race is false. Another thing that I wanted to say is that you will get certain so-called refugees that have experienced crime. However, in South Africa, no one is exempt. These people that you are welcoming assume because they're white, they should not experience crime. The people most affected by crime in South Africa happen to be Black people that live in poverty. Yep. So as you open your doors and welcome people, and you're going to get a lot of information and disinformation from these people, please do keep that in mind. Oh, I also would like to say all the best and good luck to the Americans.
Yeah, she said good luck to the Americans because you got them now. Yeah. They're not like, this is what people need to understand. I interviewed a guy on the show the very first year I had this show. He was living in South Africa, and he came on to talk about just how the apartheid, how everything was there, and just shockingly crazy. And then this guy I thought was very, very interesting here. This guy, thank you, Nay, for sharing this. White Americans are not so welcoming to the Afrikaners. Listen to what this guy says about the taxes. Hold on.
Donald Trump is chartering a plane using U.S. taxpayer money to bring refugees from South Africa to America. Now let's think about this for just one moment. What is the same about all these South African refugees that we might notice? They're all white people. That's right. And so when we talk about deporting people, it appears that they're mostly non-white. But we can bring in South Africans who are white. And I just can't shake this feeling. That maybe, and I'm not saying it, I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not in the room when these conversations occur. It seems to me that it's possible that these guys in the White House are motivated by certain aspects of these people that they're bringing in and taking out. I'm not saying it's true.
So he is so funny to me because he said that in the most polite way possible. He said, I don't know, but it kind of seems to me that it, you know what I mean? So again, in the theme of the show, you know, I want something else. Yeah, I want something else. Look, here's the thing. Our immigration system in this country is terrible. It's appalling. It has not been fixed. Every presidential election during my life, I've heard presidential candidates talk about how they're going to fix the immigration system in this country. And it's just a talking point at this point, right? Trump came along and he said he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it and all this crazy stuff. But none of them talk about the geopolitics of it all. None of them talk about that a lot of these people, before even coming to the US, have already gone to other countries. Why don't they talk about that? Why don't they tell you that a lot of the people that are coming from Venezuela aren't even Venezuelan? They're from other countries in South America, and they migrated to Venezuela first before they even made it here. Why don't I tell you that? Why don't they say that people are also migrating to other countries as well? This is another one that I feel gets left out. You think people are just coming to the US? They're not. People are going to Canada. People are going to Germany. When I lived in Germany, I remember that there were refugees from Turkey. They pushed them into ghettos. They were called Turkish ghettos. I still remember this. There were refugees there living in Germany that were from Turkey. People were going to France. People were going to all other European countries too. They're not just coming to the United States. But they never connect the geopolitics. They never want to talk about what the US did to those countries and what France did to those countries and what the UK did to those countries and are still doing to those countries. They want to complain about people migrating from Haiti, but they don't want to tell you what the Clintons did to Haiti. They don't want to tell you what Woodrow Wilson did to Haiti, how they destroyed these countries. They put sanctions on them so that the people can barely build and have a developing, country. And then they wonder why people trying to leave. So that is a part of it. Now, is everybody coming here because of that reason? No, not everybody. Some people are coming because they do want opportunity. They want something different. But the geopolitics of it all, a lot of people, if you talk to them, they would rather stay where they are. Just like what you see happening in Burkina Faso. And we talked about this on the show. What Ibrahim is doing should be applauded by all, because Ibrahim is pushing people like France out and said, no, you are not going to come in and colonize my country. You're not going to steal our resources anymore. This is our land and we're going to stay here. Problem is, when leaders in other countries do that, the US government and the West in general has been known for taking those leaders out. They did this to Gaddafi. This is the part none of these presidential candidates will talk about on the stage when they have these debates, when they're running for office, because it's a taboo issue. And if they have that conversation, then they have to admit that the West is corrupt. They would have to admit that we're bad. Like what we do to these people, what we do to these countries. Because a lot of them want to stay where they are. So that needs to be part of the conversation. But the group that just came here, they, according to the president of South Africa, do not qualify for refugee status. They are not being oppressed. It's appalling. And that's why I had Elon on the thumbnail, because this really is a nod to him. This is what Elon wanted. He was one of the people that pushed for this, right? So once again, you have billionaires making decisions about what happens in our country. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Boop, 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 boop. Thank you, James Bondage. Oh, James Bond, not James Bond, James Bondage. You're absolutely right. Need to stop wasting time, money, and energy on Dems and focus on third party. Green, best bet. Thank you, James. Rain. Richard Wolff's recent economic update. I know I have it saved to my watch later. I need to watch that. Thank you. Where's the love? Okay, so now they're going to be labeled as African Americans. What? Girl, you know what? You already there. I was about to say, girl, I see where this is going. There you go. There you go. Thank you, Marlon. What was that movie? Nope. And they probably going to give them land on the taxpayer's dime. Thank you, Anthony. Politics against South Africa Endgame question mark. Thank you, Matless X. Don't forget, Anthony, South Africa was the one that took Israel to the ICJ. Don't forget that. Matless, white South Africans are not the only ones allowed to come. Don't forget about Nigerian Igbos. They're not the people who just came, though. But yeah, I'm talking about the people who had so much criticism for refugees, but now that white South Africans came, they don't have a problem. They're not saying anything, or they don't have a problem with it. GUP1, a South African court has dismissed claims of a white genocide in the country as clearly imagined and not real, undermining comments made by U.S. President Donald Trump and his advisor, Elon Musk. Of course. Thank you all one same. They can pick blueberries $11 an hour, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week in Louisiana Sun. Article in the Daily Dot and Culture hiring farm pickers job ad. Shout out to Mystical Energy Vibes for becoming a Sabby member. Give Mystical Energy a big whoop whoop. Thank you, Ace Play. These are not suffering South Africans. These are the ones who want to uphold apartheid. Exactly. Thank you, Roger. Once these big-bellied Afrikaners get a load of our wondrous U.S. healthcare, they'll be on a one-way ticket to where ancestors come from, Britain and Netherlands. Thank you, Anthony. Trump mentioned birthright original intent. That's a plus for struggling Americans not competing with illegals. Thank you, Marlon. KKK is getting some imports. And thank you, Flower Bro. Gavin Newsom just extended another $3 billion to lock up homeless people in California. Butch Ware for governor 2026. Yeah, and we had Butch on the show to talk about that campaign. Okay, we are moving on to the next story. Ladies and gentlemen, again, the theme is I want something else. This is an interesting one. If you have issues with the price of prescription drugs in this country, this could be the answer. I prefer something a little bit further, but I was kind of surprised by this one. Donald Trump apparently has signed an executive order to reduce the price of prescription drugs. And how would this be somewhat different from what Kamala and Biden did when they were in office as well? Let's go ahead and get into this clip here, ladies and gentlemen. Trump signs order pushing companies to lower prescription drug prices.
Now to a story we told you about at the top of the hour. We have more details about President Trump's plan to slash drug prices in the U.S. by at least 50%.
This morning, the president signed a sweeping executive order which sets a 30-day deadline for drug makers to lower the cost of prescription medications. Joining us now to talk about it all, NBC News health and medical reporter Berkeley Lovelace. Berkeley, this all sounds really good, but how does drug pricing currently work, and what is the actual proposed change in this executive order?
Yeah, so in the U.S., drug companies generally have the freedom to charge whatever they want or whatever the market will bear. And so under this new plan, Trump is directing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to basically negotiate with drug companies to lower their prices. If they're unable to reach an agreement, then Trump will then direct Kennedy to adopt what he calls a most favored nation policy, where the drugs in the U.S. will be tied to the drug prices in other countries. And so this.
Pause. So they're trying to slash drug costs by at least 50%. So that would be huge if this happens. Hey, I would not be one to turn that down. I know many people that have been struggling to pay for prescription medications, even those that have health insurance. So this is something I've talked about on this show before. When he talks about comparing it to other countries, one of the things we pointed out before is that Canada, right? So like insulin is a lot cheaper in Canada than it is in the United States. You could look at like places like the UK, other European countries, for example, they're not paying what we pay for prescription medication in this country. So this is not, in my opinion, I don't think this is a bad thing. Now, I'm not a fan of Trump. I know some people are saying boo to this just because they're like, oh, Trump did it, so I hate it. I don't care who does it. Like, here's the thing. I don't care who does it. I just want it done. I don't care who, ends the genocide in Gaza. I just want it done. I don't care who cuts drug prices. I just want it done. Now, I want something else. I want universal health care. I want all of us to have health care in this country. I want that, $1 trillion that Trump mentioned the US government just paid for more weapons for the military. I want that money to be spent towards health care. Because if we're trying to really advocate for peace, we shouldn't be spending money towards weapons we're not going to use anyway, right? So I want that. That would be the end game for me. Give everybody health care and you cut big pharma out. That's how you stick it to big pharma. You know how you punch big pharma in the face? Universal health care. Then you don't have to worry about people going bankrupt because they were diagnosed with cancer and the insurance will only pay so much and they still got to cover the cancer treatments. People fighting to stay alive and going in debt. Then you don't have to worry about that. Then you don't have to worry about, am I allowed to go see this doctor? Can I go to this hospital? Do I have to get a referral from this person or that person? Like, it is a hot mess. It doesn't make any sense. All these other developed countries in the world have universal health care. So I applaud this. I applaud the reduction of prescription drug prices. But what I would want ultimately is universal health care in this country.
This is a policy that's very similar to what Trump did in his first term, but that was blocked by a federal court in the drug industry when he first did this the first time. And so right now there's a lot of questions right now whether Trump has the legal authority to do something like this and whether or not we'll be able to get these drug prices lowered.
In Berkeley, there are a lot of medications out there. Do we know what types of drugs will be covered under the president's current plan?
Yeah, so this won't just be limited to Medicaid. It will also include Medicare and private insurance as well. Also on this call with White House officials, they also said GLP-1 drugs such as Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound would also likely be a part of these price cuts as well. Once again,
we pause here because this is the difference, right? So remember when Biden and Kamala, they did have the reduction of the prescription drug prices. But remember, if I remember correctly, I remember insulin was reduced for those on Medicare. And I remember saying, what about those who are not on Medicare? Because if you're not at least 65, then what about everybody else? There are some people who are born with diabetes. There's type 1, there's type 2. So I said that, but this is a little bit different because look at this. It says it's not going to be limited to Medicare prescriptions, and it targets drugs that are covered by Medicaid and private insurance. So if this happens, that would be a plus, right? But ultimately, the way that you really knock out big pharma is by giving everybody universal health care.
Know whether or not they'll be able to do this or whether they'll have the legal authority to do so, but a price drop for those drugs as well would be a very welcome addition.
Yeah, and Berkeley, you mentioned that the drug makers in the last term of President Trump tried to fight this. Are we hearing anything, reaction to this plan from industry experts or lawmakers?
Yeah, in my opinion, that's likely the biggest barrier right now. We are hearing pushback from drug companies. AstraZeneca, for example, recently just put out a statement as well, saying in part that the policy risks undermining U.S. leadership in biotechnology and stifling the innovation that drives global health advancements. I've also heard from the pharma industry trade group as well, and they've been pushing back on this as well, saying that instead the Trump administration should focus on insurance companies and PBMs or middlemen instead of the pharmaceutical companies.
Thanks for.
Of course, they're going to say that because they make a lot of money in big pharma, right? Like when you look at how much it costs to make some of these prescription drugs and what they charge for it, it's ridiculous. I remember I had an insurance lapse at one point. This is when I was in between jobs. It was like I had a job, but I was leaving that job for another job and I was moving to a different state and all that kind of stuff, right? We ain't gonna go through all that tonight. But I remember that brief period, I didn't have coverage, right? Well, guess what is really expensive if you don't have insurance? EpiPens are really expensive if you don't have insurance. And I don't even know if every insurance plan covers it fully. Inhalers are expensive if you don't have insurance. And again, I don't even know if every insurance covers. I don't know. But if you have ever been in that situation where you had a lapse like in between having like insurance coverage, then you know what I'm talking about. If you had to go like purchase like those items and things like that. So Of course, Big Pharma is pushing back on it because they want to make money. That's what this is really all about for them. So I said the only way you can really knock them out with a Superman punch is by having universal health care. So let's go into this a little bit more so you can see how this would work. Trump signs an order to reduce drug prices, but it's unclear how it would work. Let's get into this a little bit here. Of course, independent pharmacists warn of higher prices and shortages from proposed tariffs there. He said drug makers would have to cut their U.S. prices to the level paid by other developed countries or face consequences. If necessary, we'll investigate the drug companies and we'll, in particular, investigate the countries that are doing this. He also said that the U.S. market would be open to imports from other countries. So this is a big one, right? Like imagine being able to get your insulin from Canada, which is it's so much cheaper. Okay. Patients in the U.S. generally pay more for drugs than patients in other countries, largely because other countries have government healthcare systems that set prices they are willing to pay. There you go. See, the U.S. by and large doesn't set prices. So drug companies have more freedom to see what prices the market here will bear. We've been subsidizing other countries throughout the world by paying higher prices, Trump said at the White House on Monday. Now, the executive order lays out multiple approaches to lower those prices. Now, one of the things it says is that the order says that within 30 days, the administration will give price targets to drug makers to bring prices down for American patients in line with comparably developed nations. The order lays out actions the administration would take if drug makers don't comply voluntarily, such as rulemaking to impose the prices. It is unclear in the short term what legal authority the administration would have to enforce that order. And see, again, you could get around all this if we had Medicare for all, if we had a universal healthcare system, right? Because I don't know how they would be able to enforce it. But if we had universal healthcare, you can get out of that, right? Part of me wonders, this from Trump, is this kind of a response from, Luigi Mangione? I don't know, but something has to change. And I worked in healthcare for two and a half years before I moved over to higher education. And I can tell you, like, guys, these drugs are expensive. And like, in some cases, I'm just like beyond shocked that they're charging what they charge people. And if you're a healthy person and you don't have to take any type of prescription medication, and you may not know, but I've seen those prices working at a skilled nursing facility. Trump said he doesn't think the move would hurt drug companies' ability to make money because they will put pressure on other countries to make up the difference by raising their prices. Europe's going to have to pay a little bit more. The rest of the world is going to have to pay a little bit more, and America is going to pay a lot less. So here's a problem that I bring up here. How are those countries in Europe going to pay more when the people in those countries have universal health care? I'm just thinking about that. Like, I don't know. So that's something to consider there. Trump teased the latest most favored nation price policy on Truth Social Sunday night, prompting the trade group Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America to come out against the executive order, calling it a bad deal for American patients. So this was proposed before. Trump originally signed an executive order on most favored nation pricing in late 2020 during his first term that would have tied Medicare Part B drug prices to those in other countries. But the executive order faced court challenges and was ultimately dropped by the Biden administration. So it's interesting that Joe Biden kept some of Trump's policies, but not others. Like, he kept some of Trump's tax policies, but he chose to forego a healthcare policy that would have helped more people. Don't you guys find that to be a little bit strange? This is why forcing the vote for Medicare for all was so significant during that time, and why it should have happened, because we were in the middle of a pandemic. That was the best time to really push and get all the politicians on record who would be against it. But they're not there to serve us, are they? not there to serve us at all. I want you to hear his response here, what he said about the drug makers pushing back on this.
Joining me now is NBC News health and medical reporter Berkeley Lovelace Jr., who's been digging into this. And I read your piece on NBCnews.com that really helps to explain what's going on here. So the president said in his remarks today that prescription drug prices will drop, quote, almost immediately. How realistic is that idea?
Yeah, so he did say that White House, they actually walked that back a little bit. They actually said we expect relief very soon and we expect the drug makers to come to the table very soon. So not exactly immediate, but there are questions on whether or not Trump will be able to get this done and whether he has like the legal authority to do this. Right now, you'll recall the Biden administration negotiated drug prices under Medicare, but that was passed under Congress, not an executive order. And so
that part right there is really important. I was about to say expensive, but everything's expensive. It's important. You know why? Because I wonder if the bypassing of Congress is because it's not going to pass. Think about this for a second. Yeah, he's right. Like when Biden and Kamala did it, it went through Congress. I get all that. At the same time, though, do you guys think that, because Democrats are not in charge of the House, like Republicans have the majority in the House right now. So do you think that would even pass the House? And then you'd have to worry about the Senate. So to me, it seems like he already know it wouldn't pass. I don't know, guys.
So this policy from Trump is much broader. So he's saying that it will not only go after Medicare, but also will go for drugs under Medicaid and private insurance as well. He even mentioned the weight loss drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy, saying that they'll target those as well. But there's still a lot of questions of whether or not he has the authority to go after all these drugs under commercial markets as well.
So I'm curious about the reaction to this. We know the president signed a less aggressive version of this executive order during his first term. There was pushback from the drug medication industry at that time. How is the pharmaceutical industry responding this time around? How might they respond going forward?
Yeah, so as you know, they did block Trump's original version of that plan as well. And so they are already pushing back now. We're already getting responses. AstraZeneca responded today to us. Pharma, the drug industry trade group, also responded to us. They said that we should instead focus on insurance companies and middlemen rather than pharmaceutical companies, which is a very common line of argument from them. No lawsuits yet, but we should expect more lawsuits to come.
Yeah, I want to play something for our viewers, something the president said earlier today. Watch this.
The pharmaceutical companies make most of their money, most of their profits from America. Basically, what we're doing is equalizing. There's a new word that I came up with, which I think is probably the best word. We're going to equalize, where we're all going to pay the same.
So, Berkeley, can you sort of help us fact check some of what we just heard here from the president? This idea that Americans are paying more than folks in other countries, or pharmaceutical companies are making more from Americans here. What exactly are the differences sort of between what other wealthy nations are spending on medication versus the U.S.?
Yeah, so that's actually true. So we do have the highest drug prices in the world. We pay something like up to 10 times more than what other wealthy nations pay. A lot of that has to do with the fact that drug companies in the U.S. have had free reign to charge whatever they want or whatever the market will bear.
A lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't have universal health care. Like, I'm sorry, they're not saying it. I'm going to say it. You know, in Canada, everybody has health care. In a lot of these European countries, everybody has health care. I think Australia has something like a private option or something like that. But that's they're not going to tell you this, guys. They're not going to tell you this, right? So, yeah, it's not equal, but this isn't new. Like, come on. We heard Bernie talked about this during both of his campaigns, like how different the prices are when you look at other countries compared to the US. So I don't know. I have a feeling that this may get struck down because he didn't go through Congress. That's kind of what the feelies are that I have. I hope that doesn't happen. Like 50% would be a big difference, like for a lot of people in this country. But ultimately, there's something else that I would want would be universal health care. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. All righty. Teddy K says, to get me through this semi-charm kind of life. Do. I want something else. Chris says, I do think Trump is puffing with his prescription drug move because we need a true universal healthcare system without the U.S. going bankrupt for it. Welch's Grape says, why are people on Medicare paying for drugs in the first place? Because Medicare only covers 80% and there's that 20% co-insurance. It's one day I can do a whole explanation video about this, about the pricing and how a lot of this stuff works. I know it's crazy. Like, think about that. Like, seniors still have to pay. Yeah. Holy smokes. Thank you so much, Dana. Thank you, Sabby, for running my blood pressure up with that South Africa news. I got one thing to say to South Africaners. Look up the song Sun City. Thank you so much, Dana. Thank you, Anthony. Will pharmacies struggle to be solvent enough? I have a friend who barely afford copay plus meds. I would pay. We need something. They would have to adjust. One good thing to check is to ask people that live in Canada, because remember, they went through this. Ask them how they adjusted. Thank you, Chris. The unit cost of insulin alone is about 19 cents, I believe, but the profit motive drives these capitalist scabs. We need change, 100%. Thank you, Justin. Trump is going for lower drug prices following a letter he received from an oligarch buddy of his. If prices are too high for billionaires, that should tell you something about how high those drug prices have gotten. Yep. Thank you, Marlon. I think we need to reform the FDA first if we can't end profit medicine entirely. Thanks, Miss Ritchie. My theory is that they use the promise of free healthcare to entice people to enlist in the military. That's another good point. Why else would people fight Israel's wars? That's a good point there, Miss Ritchie. And thank you, Justin. Trump will never go for Medicare for all. Trump isn't interested in taking down Big Pharma. He's doing this for a buddy of his, and it's easy dunk on the Dems. Yeah, it's true. And because all Donald Trump can say is, look, they only lowered prices for prescription drugs under Medicare. I went a step further, and the Democrats, they wouldn't even do it for you. Look at me. I'm the guy of the working class. So something to take into consideration. All righty. Okay, guys, smash the like button if you haven't done so. And we're going to move into our next story. It is time for one of Sabby's deep dives. So if you're new, I try to do a deep dive once a week. And this time I've been waiting to do this one. And I was just waiting for the moment that it came up again, and it has been brought to my attention once again. So this video is going viral on X, and she is asking, why is it that only 27% of Black women are married in America? Now, people have come up with all different types of reasons, and I will show you an expose that I saw years ago on ABC, where they spoke to Black women who were professionals who were struggling, I guess, to find, a husband. And even though that was years ago, I'm going to show you that just to show you how, once again, this subject has come back up again in the US. And at the end of the day, I'm going to tie it all to math, because I, for one, don't believe that men are just sitting back and they're like, I do not find Black women physically attractive. Everybody has like their type, right? But I don't like that. I haven't had that experience. I don't think that's what this is really about. I think a lot of this comes to basic math. Now, this is the video that is going viral. We're going to go ahead and bring it in here, because once again, this subject is back in the headlines.
26% of Black women today in America, at least, are married. 26%. There's a reason for that. And it goes down to perceptions we have about marriage. Submission is seen as, submission is seen as some old patriarchal, domineering, disrespectful, oppressive idea. So they get in these marriages and they want to box with their husbands as soon as they don't agree. They don't want to yield. They want to do their own thing. They want to remain single in marriage. And that doesn't work very well. Because like I said, at the end of the day, no man wants to feel like they're married to somebody who's competitive or who's their competition. And that's what this is looking like. It looks really bad. It's really bad. Okay, so now I want to bring up, to continue this point, I want to bring up another clip that I saw of her giving advice to the younger generation.
So we pause it here. So this is the video that's giving people like vibes. And people are seeing this and they're like, is this real? Is that number true? So the number has changed over the years. I'm going to show you the difference. But I gotta, I gotta say a couple of things before we get into what that number used to look like, right? Because years ago it was 42%, right? So let's talk for a second. First and foremost, many people will ask, has that been your experience? That has not been my experience. However, I do have friends that have had that as part of their experience. And as I told you earlier, I do not believe that the majority, the number one reason is, oh, people just don't find Black women physically attractive and da-da-da. That is not what I believe. I believe a lot of this comes down to simple math. When you look at a person's certain type, right? Black women, the studies show Black women are more likely to choose to date or to marry. Let's go with marry. They're more likely to choose to marry a Black man more than any other group. But do the numbers reflect that? So I'm going to take you back to this segment on ABC. This is really interesting, right? I saw this on TV when it came out. Now, this is like over 15 years ago. 42% of Black women are unmarried. Check this out.
It's just not that easy. For starters, there are more Black women than Black men, 1.8 million more. So even if every Black man in America married a Black woman today, 1 out of 12 still wouldn't make it down the aisle. Let's take 100 Black men. If you eliminate those without a high school diploma, those without a job, and the number of Black men between the ages of 25 and 34 who are incarcerated, that leaves only about half of Black men eligible to pop the question.
Let's go back to those numbers. Now, this was 15 years ago. And this is what I've been trying to explain to people. If you go back to what I said before, right? That
half of Black men
54% eligible. So if you go back to what I said in the beginning, that Black women, most Black women are more likely to marry a Black man. Okay. Now think about the numbers that they just gave you. So this is including, there's more Black women than there are Black men. Then you have to remove those who are already married, those who are already taken. Don't forget the prison, the prison and industrial complex. I've talked about this before on the show, the school to prison pipeline. So that's two. Some people marry people in prison, but most people don't. Let's just be real. Then you have to think about those who just don't want to be married and they want to be bachelors like forevers. It is what it is. That's 3. Then you also have to remove those who are not straight. Like, so you have to remove Black men that are LGBTQ, right? So the number, think about everything I just said. The number is going to continue to decrease of the men that are available to you. So you're working with the smaller pool. That's why I say a lot of this is basic math. Now, some people see this and they'll say, oh, well, Sabby, what do you know? You're married. I am, but I wasn't always married. Some people say to you, oh, Sabby, what do you know? You're not married to a Black guy. No, I'm not. But again, I wasn't always married. Once upon a time, I did date. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go on a little bit more in this segment because I want you to see the women that they sit down and they talk to. All of these women have professional jobs, Very smart. And I want you to hear some of the things that they say. Again, this was 15 years ago, and you tell me if this still holds true today.
And eligible to pop the question. Nicole sees the problem every day.
It is sad to see that the majority of the defendants that we prosecute are black males. Those numbers can be very disappointing.
Admittedly, the selection of men is slim.
Get it through your head. You're the Friday girl that's just for sex. That's what you are.
We broached this serious dilemma with comedian turned relationship guru Steve Harvey, author of the book Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man.
There are still a lot of good men out there who are being overlooked.
Harvey says black women don't have to settle, but may need to compromise.
You a corporate exec? Does he have to be a corporate exec? You make $150,000 a year. He has to make 150 or above? That's your requirement?
So one of the things that Steve Harvey brings up here is that maybe the women are being too selective. But I want to play devil's advocate here for just a second, because I remember when I was in undergrad, and I remember a lot of the women were selective, okay? Like, I remember regardless, black women, white women, a lot of the women were pretty selective. And if we go back to the math, we go back to the numbers, when I was in college, the male to female ratio was not cool. There were way more women at my college than there were men. So you already have a shortage. And that's for everybody. I went to the university. I graduated from the University of South Carolina. There were more women than there were men, regardless of color. So there wasn't a guy for every woman at college. There just wasn't. And then again, you got to go through those deletions, right? You got to remove the ones that are already in a relationship. You got to remove the ones that are LGBTQ. You have to remove the ones that are not interested in having a partner. And I bring up college because what I notice from my experience is that most of my female colleagues that are married their husband that they married, they met in college. I have 3 comrades I know from high school that married their high school sweetheart, but that's not as common nowadays. But only 3 of them that I know that married their high school sweetheart. One of them is divorced. People change. But most of my comrades that I know from college married the guy that they were in a serious relationship with in college. So if there is already a shortage of men at college, you're already working with a deficit. This is why I say math plays a part in that. Now, let's add on to that deficit a little bit, because like I told you, most black women prefer to marry a black man. So now if there are, we'll just use short numbers, like smaller numbers to make it easier. If there are 100 women at said college and there are 30 men, and let's say 10 of them are already in a relationship, let's say 5 of them may be LGBTQ. There's 15 guys left and there's 100 women. And then if your choice is to marry a black man, let's say out of those 30 guys that, let's go a little bit generous, let's say 10 of them are black. So you're working with a deficit, right? Now, here's what I'm not going to do, because I think people are expecting me to do this, and no, it's not happening. What I am not going to do is to tell you that you need to go date someone that is not black, right? People have their type, people have their preference. You're attracted to what you're attracted to. I'm not one of those people that's going to tell you to go do that. But I do want you to understand that there is a deficit. You are working with more women and less men. Now let's look at these women that they talked to 15 years ago. Professional women, I want you to hear what they said.
What we looked at were the large numbers of professional black women who groomed themselves for success with BAs, MDs, and JDs. 70% of them are still without the more elusive title, MRS.
I would be lying if I said that I don't have fleeting thoughts of, okay, I'm 32, my clock is ticking.
The tick-tock of the biological clock is getting louder for several of Nicole's single friends. Meet Chateau Waters. She's a 32-year-old high school counselor pursuing a doctorate degree in psychology.
we have this thing called the Black girl curse. A lot of our white friends are married by 25, like happily married, kids by 27. And we're like, what is the deal with the BGs? You know,
that part is really interesting, right? So I can respond to that as well. That is something I did notice. Most of my white female colleagues got married pretty early. Like, granted, I went to school in the South, so just take that, take that as an example. They're also in the South, so keep that in mind. But I can't count how many weddings I went to before I was 26. Can't count. But again, they married the guy that they were in a relationship with when we were in college. So they had already been together for like 4, 5, 6+ years. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, think about what she just said and think about the numbers that I just gave you. Once again, if she said they were already married by the time they were 25 and you're going back to college, there is already a deficit. We've covered on this show before that more Black women are going to undergrad and pursuing master's degrees and getting higher education. That hasn't changed from when I saw this video. That has continued to increase. And women are saying that they're not seeing that same ratio when it comes to their potential partner at college. So how do you solve this? Because I don't like to leave people with this is the problem and what do you do about it? One of the things is you try to meet people in different places, right? At school, I feel like we're lucky because like when you're in high school, you're put in a building with people, said classmates, you guys have gym, you guys have all this kind of stuff. So you're put in a space together. When you go to college on campus, you are put in a space together. After you leave college, things are a little bit different. You may move to a new city. You may live in a different type of community. You may, I don't know, maybe you're spending a lot of time at work. So you may not be able to have as much time to have extracurricular activities like you used to when you were an undergrad. These things happen, right? So where can you meet people? A lot of people cringe at this, but nowadays, the big one is online. The big one is the social like dating apps. And I know some people that have had success on those apps, but I also know some people that have some crazy, wild stories by dating people on those apps. But that's one place where you can meet people. The other one is church. You know, if you go to church, if that's your thing, you can meet people at church. You can also meet people at other social like activities, etc. Sporting events, sports is a big one. You can meet people at like basketball games, football games, that type of thing. But it's tricky because at the same time, you don't want to make it seem like you out there looking for somebody if you're going to a basketball game. And oftentimes I think these things happen when you least expect it to. I didn't even expect to get married. It just happened. Like literally, like when I moved to Massachusetts, I didn't move here and say I was looking for somebody. It happened when I least expected it to. And I think sometimes that can be like the best case scenario when you're not looking and it just happens, right? And I want to hear from the men on this one too. Some of the things that I have heard from men is that they feel like there's nothing that they can offer you if you already have everything. So let's go back to the college thing again. If the numbers continue the way that they are, where there's more Black women in college than Black men, it could be possible that there could be some type of an intimidation factor. If a guy meets you and he sees that you have a bachelor's degree, you have a master's degree, you have a condo, you have everything that you need, he may be tempted to ask, what can I do for you? How can I help you if you already have everything? That's some of the things that I've heard from people. That doesn't mean don't go to school. That doesn't mean don't have a career, but it's just something to think about. Listen to what else they say.
And it's the Black girl.
Jaqueen Ashford is a chemist for a pharmaceutical company. Now that she's 34, she's lowered the bar when it comes to height requirements.
I don't have a certain criteria, like if you're not 6'5", and I used to, but then as I got older, I said, okay, well, maybe if you're 6'3", 6'2", 6'1", okay, maybe we could see eye to eye. I kind of have certain standards that I hold myself to, and I don't feel like I should have to settle on those.
Okay. And then there's things like this. Now, again, this still was 15 years ago. I don't know. All of these women could be married today, as far as I know. I really don't know. But at the time, they were not. And they said they were looking for someone and they wanted to get married. This type of requirement where someone has to be 6'5", first of all, most men are not. I don't even think most men are 6'2". So that's a high requirement. Now, I'm assuming this woman here, maybe she's tall. She's sitting down, so I don't know. Maybe she's tall, but I think that's a bit much. I think that's a bit much. 6'5", 6'6", or whatever. I mean, come on. Those are like basketball player like heights. So most men are not that height. Someone said 5'9" is the average. So there you go. Yeah. So that is going to make it, that's going to make it harder for you.
For the sake of having somebody, I'm willing to wait.
Like many black men, she's also open to dating outside her race. In fact, in the past decade, the number of black women entering interracial marriage has more than doubled.
In fact, last night, was at a restaurant, had a great conversation with this Caucasian gentleman. I mean, we were vibing, we were clicking. I'm thinking, he's gonna ask me my number. White men never ask for my number. And he was like, all right, well, great conversation. You know, maybe I'll see you around. I was thinking, what happened?
Asked for his.
No.
Bossy black girl. We're maybe not as coveted as black men in society.
Melinda Watson is a 28-year-old payroll specialist. She hasn't had an exclusive relationship since college.
I just feel that there's a lot of taboo associated with dating black women because I don't think they're necessarily going to want to take us home to see mama.
The consensus in this group was that their preference is to marry a black man. It's not that they can't find one to date. The issue in many cases is exclusivity.
You meet these great guys, you have good relationship, good rapport, and then it's almost like, I'm going to keep you around, and hopefully when I'm ready to settle down, you'll be there.
That's the back pocket.
The back pocket thing. So then I would say that maybe that's not a good guy. I don't know. Like, look, we all know out there, those of us that have been dating or have, dated in the past. Yeah, there are going to be some people that you date that are going to be committed and are going to want that. And there's going to be some people that you may go on a date with or whatever that don't want that. But what was kind of weird to me is that she said, well, he's a great guy, but he said, I'm going to keep you in my back pocket. I'm like, because I feel like that tends to be a little bit more obvious from the get-go, from me. So again, this topic is brought back up into the spotlight again. And I just think that there's a lot of finger pointing. It's black women's fault, it's black men's fault, and da-da-da. But when you look at the numbers just aren't there. The math just isn't there. Another thing I noticed too is that they brought up the part about interracial dating. I do remember this as well from college when I was in undergrad. It did seem like guys tended to be just more open in general. It seemed like guys tend to be a little bit more open about dating different types of women, right? Whereas the women tended to be a little bit more, no, like, this is my type, this is what I want, like, etc. And I don't really know like how to fix all of that, because like I really do feel like it's a math issue. I feel like it's a numbers issue. And I feel like in order to fully fix that, you have to fix the numbers. Because if the numbers aren't there, then no, there isn't going to be a black guy for every black woman, because the numbers don't show that. And then the reality is not everybody wants to get married. Believe it or not, some women that I know personally told me they never want to get married. I know guys that said they never want to get married. And I think, each to his own. If that's what they don't want, that's what they don't want. But what I find interesting is that once again, this topic is back up in the news. And sometimes I wonder, what is the goal of the media? Why do they keep bringing this up every couple of years? The video I just showed you is from 15 years ago. This isn't the second time it's been brought up after this. It's been brought up before. So why does the media keep bringing it up? Something to think about. All right, we're going to comments. Thank you. Tia said, why aren't Black women getting married? Marriage is freaking expensive. That is another thing. Marriage is expensive. Jimmy says, feminism. Resurrect said, Keisha would rather carry than No, you didn't. Resurrect said, Keisha would rather carry than marry. Oh my God. Anthony said, good subject that has deep roots. Thomas Sowell discussed this, causes and effects, passport bro and issue. Eric, can we go to part 3 of Type VNC? Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Sounds like a lot of threesomes in college, Sabby. Threesomes? No? Cloudness says, who's been a member for 7 months, I'm not worried about any of this. I keep at least a 2-piece for this, and I try to spread the love around. Angelique says, my mom equals college grad, and my dad equals primary school dropout. Not everyone finds their partner in college. This is true. Dre, thank you. Sabby, BW are chasing athletes in college or dealing with the drug dealers off campus. The non-street guys are still being placed in the friend zone. Once you're in the friend zone, it's hard to get out. Hard to get out of the friend zone. American Autopsy says, cue the red pill, aka bussy pill soldiers, LMAO. Skylar says, Black women having unrealistic expectations over things like height is no different than men who are like, she gotta have a fat booty. I think that's supposed to be a butt, and a slim waist. Soto says, they still think that way, Sabby. This is why a lot of Black men are passport brothers. Jason says, thank you, Jason. Many couples also meet at their jobs. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I don't know. I'm not big on the job thing. I don't know. I've seen that not go well. I think if it works out, great. But I've seen it not work out in the workplace. And then it's like the people can't stand to be around each other because they're not together anymore. So I don't know about the job part. That one scares me a little bit. Thank you. Marlon says soulmates are hard to find. It's true. That is, especially nowadays, like, oh my God. Let's get Rockfin. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Roger. Democrats bragged like hell about IRA giving discounts only for Medicare, covering only 10 drugs and going into effect in 2027. It looks like Trump got to their left and owned them. Sab, you spoke about women married by 25, but you did not look on the other side of that. 25 is when the brain stops maturing. Research suggests that approximately 60% of couples married between 20 and 25 will end in divorce, according to divorce.com. Those who wait until they are over 25 are estimated to be 24% less likely to get divorced, according to Wilkinson and Fink Beener. That's interesting. Well, like I said, I know 3 people that got married to their high school sweetheart, and one of them is divorced. Okay, the infiltration of Gloria Steinem being a CIA asset, infiltrating the Black Power movement by pulling activist energy away from our movement into the feminist movement. So since then, through the 80s, as you've seen with Oprah and Robin Givens and all these songs talking about, I'm an independent woman. I don't need a man, Ebony K. Williams. Eventually, chickens will come home to roost. No other woman says this. Interesting. Woo! Roger, you might get people fired up. Might get people fired up in the chat. All right, guys. One more story for you folks. This one is a good one. Now, I covered the detained, I don't know if it's still detained at this point, but the interrogation of Hassan Piker when he came back into the U.S. That video posted earlier today. And I saw what's happening with Max Blumenthal. He's in Iran, and he got the opportunity to visit with Professor Morandi, which I think is really awesome. I'm going to show you some of that. And now I'm wondering if he's going to face that same issue when he returns back to the US, right? I don't know, because Hassan was coming from France, and Max is, when he comes back here, it'll be Iran, unless he goes to another country first and then comes back to the US. So I'm wondering about that. But this is awesome, you guys, because I think that this shows you need to see a different side of things. And I think a lot of times, particularly in this country, we are told one thing about Iran, and it's nice to see the pictures and the videos, right? So Max Blumenthal said, I toured Iran's aerospace park and got an inside look at the country's missile, drone, air defense, and space program, and what its development means for U.S.-Iranian negotiations. So you'll see, here's some of the pictures here. This is that facility. And look at all the kids, guys. See, everybody's like smiling, and it was pretty cool that he was able to do this. And then this one here, Tehran's Pervane Friday Market. This is pretty cool too. So again, like looking at these pictures, especially if maybe you thought Iran looked a certain way, right? This looks like any event. She has a Nirvana shirt. That's interesting. This looks like an event that I would see like in Cambridge or Somerville or Boston, like on a summer day. Everybody has their tables lined up on the sidewalk and they're selling their items. Looks like something you would see here, right? And another picture here, and it looks like is pottery, maybe pottery, candles. I think those are candles that they're selling there. Yeah, I mean, I thought this was pretty cool. Yeah, so it looks like a little street, market event. Just some of the things that they shared there. Look at all of this, right? I think that people sometimes have this perception of Iran, and it's nice to see someone's experience there. And here's Professor Morandi. Listen to what they say here. This is interesting.
He was one of my commanders. He was captured in the war. He was a volunteer, and he was badly injured. And then he was freed in an exchange, a POW exchange. And then he went and had a series of operations. And he went back to war.
Uh-oh. Hold on. Eric, it says my Wi-Fi is unstable, so you got to give me a second. Okay, I don't know if Eric's there or not. Let me try this again. Okay, it's back now. Let's try it again.
He was one of my commanders. He was captured in the war. He was a volunteer, and he was badly injured. And then he was freed in an exchange, a POW exchange. And then he went and had a series of operations. And he went back to war as a volunteer, even though he was limping very badly. And once he told me, he said that, look, they torture people badly. And if anyone knows that you're the son of if they find out that you're the son of a minister, they will, the Iraqis will torture you badly. So make sure you're not captured.
So you guys see this here? There's another part that I'll show you to this as well. But I think, this says something, because I remember I saw these videos on X first. And I remember just thinking to myself that how cool that Max got a chance to go over there and hang out with Professor Morandi in person, because a number of us have interviewed, right? And there is a lot of propaganda about Iran that we get from Western media. And, sometimes people think one thing. I remember I used to think Iran was just all desert. Like, I had my perception of what Iran was. I had my perception of, what I thought Saudi Arabia was. Like, again, just very uninformed. And Iran is one of the ones that I think takes a lot of heat from the West, especially Western media. And it's nice to see, this shared experience. So Max says here, I met Professor Morandi last night at Tehran's Beheshet Zahra War Martyrs Cemetery. So that was the video I was just showing you. There he led me to the graves of his friends who fell in Iran's war with Iraq, including in the pivotal Karbala 5 operation, and explained the sacrifice his society has made for independence. See, these are the things I think a lot of times people just don't know about. Like, a lot of us were taught that Iran is just this evil, hateful country and they just hate America and all these types of things. And unless you go seek this information out for yourself, or unless you go visit, like, Max Blumenthal was able to do, you'll just be propagandized. Like, you really have to seek out this information on your own. Yeah, really, really interesting. And then this one here, Friday night outside the Tehran Book Garden. So look at this. Is this what you pictured Iran looked like? Watch this. It looks beautiful, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Looks like something you would see here in the United States. But see, this is what corporate media doesn't want you to see. They don't want you to know about this. They want you to think that it's just this, that people are just, I guess, like living in like these holes or whatever, and they're just waiting to like attack people or whatever. No, like, look, if you ever get the opportunity to travel, guys, go see the world. If you get the opportunity, go travel, go to different countries, go see how people live in those countries. And then you'll be able to debunk some of the propaganda for yourself. And I think one of my favorite parts here, and then we'll get to the walk that he had with Professor Morandi. Even this one here, and I'll mute this one because there's music playing. But even in this video, look at this. If I didn't tell you that this was Iran, would you know that this was Iran? I mean, minus the sign there, right? Look. And minus, I guess, the license plate. But other than that, like, would you know? Look at this. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Doesn't look like what you were told it would look like, does it? Does it look like that? No. I mean, this, Sean said it looks like Boston. It kind of does, right? Like, that looks like that could be part of the North End in Boston with the streets, the cobblestone streets. But look at it. So Max is basically opening a door to their world. He's showing you, hey guys, this is what Tehran looks like. And this is totally opposite from what I was told about Iran. Yeah, just look at all of this. See how they have the outdoor patios. Look at all the fresh food. I mean, you see that? Yeah. I mean, it looks beautiful to me. Shaping said, no McDonald's, Walmart, or Dunkin', they must be evil. It also looks clean. And they may have areas like that in Iran that, may not look like this, but I'm looking at the ground. I still haven't found trash on the ground yet. Do you see trash on the ground? Because I don't. Does this look scary to you? Are you afraid? Are you intimidated? Are you scared of the ketchup and the mustard bottle we just passed? No. See, this is what the U.S. doesn't want you to see this. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, they don't want you to know about this. They don't want you to see it. It looks beautiful. And so, again, I just think this is why I want people to travel if they get the opportunity to do so. You see? But no, listen to the media will tell you this is such a scary, oh my God. Right? Now, this is Max filming. Looks like that's some type of treat there. Okay? So, do you hear anybody saying they hate America or Americans? Max is American? Do you hear any? You see what I'm saying? And they know it's not like Max goes there and they're like, oh, I think that guy is from here. Like they know. They know when they see an American, right? So look at everything. The food, the energy. So what's the problem? What's the problem, people? Lots and lots of lies that we have been told. Oh my God, I am so afraid. There's a farm stand there. Yikes, we got to get out of there. Right? So that's what they don't want you to see. This is probably my greatest part. And then we'll get to the walk with Professor Morandi. This is awesome. Check this out. Isn't that awesome, you guys? Guys, go see the world. Go see the world. Go out there and get there. So he had this conversation with Professor Morandi. You can see the rest of this on the gray zone, but there's one part here I did want to show you as they were walking through the Martyrs Cemetery.
Reason why you developed a certain fearlessness, or some would even say reckless abandon, to confront power. A lot of people might be intimidated by a Western media presenter who's so polished and has so many talking points to throw at you. But you've been sort of a singular force from this country, and being able to overcome the propaganda. I mean, I think that's what you're known for in my country.
Oh, I don't, you know, I don't fear them, because the worst that he could do is just, what can he do to me? He can try to humiliate me, or to, you know, all these people have died. I have a responsibility. You have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility to do what's right.
Is that what it is? You feel a responsibility to?
Yeah, that's the only reason I do it. It's the only reason I do it. Otherwise, I'd rather go and just teach and live my life. I don't like being on television fighting with these people or being attacked or accused. It's not, I don't think you take pleasure in people antagonizing you, but you feel someone has to do it. If we don't do it, then who's going to do it?
So is it revenge in a way?
No, I think it's just defending the press, the abused, the marginalized.
For me, it was kind of revenge, confronting Blinken, because it was the only thing I could do, and I had the ability to be in the room.
Yeah, but you could just be quiet. You could just live your life.
I couldn't just live my life, so
because
I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah, but exactly. So it's not just revenge. It's a principle. It's a series of principles. If you don't know all these people in Gaza, you've never met 99.9. I know you've been there, but you know few of them. You can just turn away. You can condemn them and just move on.
Yeah,
but I mean, you can't. You feel you can't live with yourself, because you know you have a responsibility. When it came to Syria, I felt I had a responsibility.
So this part is really important, how Professor Morandi is talking about he could have just turned the other cheek, and he could have just said, like, it's sad what's happening there, but I don't have to talk about it. I could just move on. You know, it's not happening here. I could just move on. But he said he felt like he had a responsibility. I also noticed how when they're walking down the street, like, the streets are very clean, like, and it looks pretty safe. Like, hell, I don't feel safe walking down some of the streets here in Massachusetts. Okay. Like, the propaganda about some of these countries, it is just so, if you talk to people who've been to China, I think Danny Haifong's in China right now. I think Danny Haifong said he's in China. I think he went back there. Okay. So he's been there a number of times. If go to China, watch Danny's videos of him in China. Doesn't look like what the US tells you. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, if you talk to people who have traveled to Moscow, right? Doesn't look like what the US said. It just, come on. In Russia, they don't have like all these chemicals in their food. Like, why do you guys think people in other countries live longer than we do? They don't have all this chemicals in their food. They're not like pumping with all this, like, they're eating real food. They're active. That's another thing we can talk about, you know, not being active, and people spend a lot of time on social media instead of going out, hanging out with people in person. That's a whole nother thing. But this is important for people to see. And I know when I was growing up, I was told things about these countries. And then as I got older and I started to do my own research, I realized I'm like, yo, these countries don't look anything like what they said. I've been lied to. I've been brainwashed. And all I can tell you is just pass that on to other people, guys. Pass that on to your friends. Pass that on to your family members. There's a lot of people still in the United States who still think that Iran is evil and they want to kill all of us because of the propaganda that comes from corporate media. I'd feel safer walking down that street in Iran than I would walking down some of the streets here in Boston. Some of you might feel the same way where you live in your city. Let's continue on a little bit more.
to Iraq, when it came to Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, you and I have, and others like us, many, like those students who protest. Families of the marchers, they have special passes.
Yeah.
So they can bring in their cars.
Okay.
They're enjoying themselves. Yeah, there are lots. We can go on for hours here. The weather's nice.
I would say that much of the death that I've been confronted with, I mean, my grandfather fought in a war and is buried in a cemetery, the Arlington National Cemetery, but it has a different meaning to Americans than this does to Iranians. It doesn't have the...
Okay. So we can go ahead and cut it there. But you guys have got to see, like, I don't know, like, you need to see these countries. And, everybody can't afford to travel. And I totally get that. But we have video, right? So you can see what these countries actually look like on video. And please, please, please stop believing, if you still do, the propaganda that's coming from corporate media, because this place looks beautiful. This place, what I saw of parts of Tehran, look better than some of the cities we got here in the United States. I can't walk through one downtown without seeing trash. You know what I mean? I didn't see any trash here. So I'm glad that Max got this opportunity to go meet Professor Morandi, and you can watch the full video on a Gray Zone. There's also another video on the Gray Zone where he's touring that aerospace facility that I was telling you about, where you can watch that one in full as well. I'm wondering if he's going to face some issues when he comes back to the US, just considering like what happened to Hassan Piker, who came back here from France. Him coming back from Iran, I'm wondering if he may run into a similar situation. I don't know. But if you get the opportunity to travel, guys, you should definitely travel. Ask yourself this question. Why is it that all these politicians get on a plane and they go visit Israel, but they don't go visit Iran? Why? All these politicians that got on planes to go to Israel, why they didn't go into Gaza? Questions we should ask. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Here. Thank you, American Autopsy. If you get friend zoned, then you're probably a lame, and that's a you problem. LOL. Thank you, Donnie Nunn. Many men fear marriage because in event of a divorce, they tend to lose, and child support is hostile towards young Black men. Yeah, I've heard some child support stories that are kind of scary. Dwayne says people have weird perceptions of Iran because of propaganda. Thank you, Marlon. The purpose of propaganda is to hide the beauty of other cultures in plain sight. Do your research. That's right. Thank you, Ace Play. They'll tell us the women are oppressed, so we need to go liberate them. Those women walking around look oppressed. Arsenal Maniac. Professor Morandi is almost 60. Professor Morandi is almost 60 years old, doesn't look it, because he's eating real food. Thank you. Where's the love? I caught a walking tour of Iran. It was fly. I was really surprised. It was beautiful. Not what I imagined. See, there you go. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Yen. America is a brainwashed delusion of itself, Sabs. And thank you, Where's the Love? I'm scared to walk anywhere within my city. Yeah, I mean, Let's get that comment on Rumble. Thank you, Goo81. Notice that you see women walking without hijabs as well. Yes. Oh, that's a common misconception. Thank you as well, Goo. Now, if only Trump provides refugee status to Israelis and say that we can provide safe spaces in the U.S., free Palestine. And thank you for this one. Also, Shiraz in Iran, I heard, is very beautiful with mountains, snow, and greenery. All right. And thank you for this one. There was a Galloway video showing an active Iranian synagogue that is older than Israel. And George said, notice there is no security guards as Iranian Jews live in safety and part of the government. Yeah. So many people have been misled, man. So many people have been misled. Wow. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight. I will be live again Thursday evening, and Thursday night we will do call in. So I hope to see all of you guys there. In the meantime, I am working with an editor on the documentary I was telling you guys about. So I'm going to be spending, a good portion of my time doing that. But I'll be meeting with them tomorrow to start some of the editing process. So I look forward to that being all done. And when that documentary is done, I think you guys are going to like it. That's it for me, guys. All right. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.